Hi guys, welcome back again for another North Carolina Final Exam review video. Today we're going to be looking at Reconstruction from 1865 to 1877. As you watch the video, answer the guided questions provided. You may need to pause or rewatch the video in order to answer the guided questions. When the video ends, summarize in paragraph form the main points of the video. Make sure that you use the specific vocabulary, the bolded and underlined words from the video, in your summary. Then finish by asking one question. This can either be something you're still confused about, a general question, or a discussion question. The questions that you should be answering in your summary are: how did the United States recover from the Civil War? And then what effect did the Civil War have on newly freed African Americans? After the Civil War, radical Republicans who wanted African Americans to have equal rights passed 3 amendments that became known as the Civil War Amendments. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment made former slave citizens and provided equal protection for the laws of all citizens. The 15th Amendment provided voting rights for African American males. I always tell my students, in order to remember them, you know that you need the right to vote with the 15th Amendment, but in order to vote, you have to be a citizen. Then in order to be a citizen, you have to be free. The first question that had to be answered during Reconstruction was, how did the southern states become readmitted to the Union? Lincoln created a plan for Reconstruction before he was assassinated that became known as the 10% Plan. When 10% of the state's voters had signed a loyalty oath, they could organize a new state government that banned slavery. Congress tried to counter the 10% Plan with the Wade-Davis bill that required 51% of voters to pledge loyalty to rejoin the Union. However, the bill never passed. Most people believe that high of a percentage was too much. Johnson's plan included a loyalty oath but added one condition: that Southerners with property over $20,000 had to apply for a personal pardon from the president. Johnson wanted to punish the South. Congressional leaders opposed this plan because Johnson's plan did not help former slaves. Radical Republicans, like we'd said previously, wanted African Americans to have equal rights. That was the main part of their Reconstruction plan. They also wanted to divide the South into 5 military districts that would control the South until they had signed their loyalty oaths and became a part of the Union again. But this plan lost support because it was really expensive to pay the military leaders to stay in those districts. The majority of freedmen entered into sharecropping or tenant farming arrangements. They would rent the land in tenant farming or share the crops on their assigned plot in sharecropping with their former masters. Sharecropping and tenant farming led to a cycle of debt for African American farmers. In addition to that, black codes were passed by Southern legislatures to place limits on the opportunities that African Americans had. Black codes were very similar to slave codes and kept African Americans in slave-like states, in which they were inferior to whites. The Freedmen's Bureau was created to give educational opportunities and aid to African Americans after the Civil War. They opened more than 4,000 schools in the South during Reconstruction called freedmen's schools. Many African Americans also fled to the North, where there was more industrial jobs, or to the West to get out of the South. They also escaped the South because of the discrimination that was occurring. These African Americans that fled became known as exodusters. In the picture to the left, or right, you can see some African American exodusters who were escaping the South. In the election of 1876, Democrat Samuel J. Tilden had the more popular votes than Republican Rutherford B. Hayes. In order to figure this out, they had to come up with some sort of compromise because Tilden had won 184 out of the 185 electoral votes needed to win, but there were also 20 more disputed votes in 4 states. In the Compromise of 1877, the Democrats agreed that Hayes would take office if the Radical Republicans would remove federal troops from the South. The Republicans gave up on the civil rights laws that they wanted to enact in the South to further spread equality for African Americans and counteract the black codes. The Compromise of 1877 successfully ended Reconstruction. In addition to the ending of Reconstruction, the Slaughterhouse Cases weakened the Civil Rights Amendment and acts passed during Reconstruction, and it left it up to those states to enforce the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment. In a Supreme Court case, Plessy v. Ferguson, They also legalized the separation of African Americans and whites. This created what became known as separate but equal. And it also led to the establishment of separate school systems for African Americans and further Jim Crow laws. Southern governments, in addition to black codes, began passing laws that would limit the abilities of African Americans to vote through literacy tests that required somebody to take a reading test, poll taxes that required someone to pay in order to vote, and the grandfather clause, which stated that if your grandfather had the right to vote before 1865, then you could have the right to vote as well, limiting the votes only to whites. Before you finish, make sure that you answer the guided questions. If you missed one, watch the video again, pausing where you need to. If you feel like you have a good understanding of the video, summarize it in paragraph form using the main points from the video and the specific vocabulary given to you on your WSQ sheet. These appeared as bolded and underlined words. Then finish by asking one question, either something you're still confused about, a general question about the concepts, or a discussion question for the class. Thank you for joining me for the last WSQ and North Carolina Final Exam Review video. We'll see you again next time.